Okay, guys, I guess we're here. We're live on ArtistWorks. I was not seeing the screen here for a second, but yeah, we're going to be talking about some. Let's see here. I don't know why I'm not. Yeah, I'm not seeing any of the comments or anything here, so. I'm not seeing anything on here that I mean, I'm not. There's no engagement here. So let me. Hey.
Oh, can you read them? They're starting to come through.
Yeah, I mean, what am I supposed to be doing? Am I answering questions or what here?
Yeah, so you could just answer any of the questions that come through.
I'm not seeing any. Sorry, folks. We're going to have to shut this down for a minute. I'm not understanding what's going on here. That works great.
Awesome. I'm going to turn our stuff back on.
Okay. That works great. Okay.
Hi guys, sorry for the technical difficulties here. We're back online and we're ready to get started with Guthrie again. Hi guys, sorry for the technical difficulties here. We're back online. Okay, Guthrie. Get started with Guthrie again. Okay, are you there?
I am.
Awesome. So let's just tell everybody why we're here today, which is to celebrate Mother's Day, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so we're talking about an initiative we're doing here at ArtistWorks called Pass Down Sound. And that's all about just passing down the sound through your family. So part of why we want to celebrate that today is to talk a little bit about your family and how you grew up around music. Do you think you could talk a bit about that?
Sure. Am I supposed to be seeing the comments right now? Because I'm still not seeing any comment.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. I'll bring the comments up to you as I see them.
Okay.
But right now, let's just talk about how you grew up around music.
Well, yeah, I mean, my mom and dad were huge music fans, and you know, my uncle was a self-taught musician, so there was always music around the house. You know, my mom and dad were not musicians or players themselves, but they were music aficionados. They always had, you know, amazing music playing around the house, and wasn't raised on any top 40 radio, so you know, a lot of bluegrass, folk music, singer songwriters, blues, jazz, rock and roll. You know, so a little different way to grow up on the Alabama Gulf Coast. So, um, you know, that's kind of it. I mean, there was always parties that we went to that revolved around music. A lot of people playing, and I think that, you know, if you're a young you know, even a baby, you know, and you're around a lot of music, I think this stuff kind of seeps into your blood and your bones before you're even able to physically pick up an instrument, you know. So I think it's a huge part of kind of you know, getting into this. I mean, a lot of people I know are kind of in the same situation where it was around, they were around it, or there was some story of, you know, some family member or somebody that they really looked up to that kind of got them into this. So yeah.
That's awesome, Guthrie. I know that that musical influence has been a big part of what's made you the musician you are today. Is there anyone specifically that you can thank for passing down sound to you? Any people that come to mind who were really big influences to you?
Well, my uncle, especially, who I looked up to as kind of an older brother, being an only child, you know, I looked up to him. He was still is a super cool guy and very talented in many ways. And you know, he taught himself how to play music by listening to records, and I would hang out with him after school and just kind of, you know, learn to play very organically from him. No, I don't know how to read music, or I didn't ever take formal lessons or training or anything like that, which I think a lot of our favorite musicians that we know and love in many genres they're self-taught. They learn to play in clubs. They learn to play by playing with other musicians rather than learning something, you know, that's very clinical, and you got to have some heart and soul in music to survive. So that's a big part of it. So yeah, him especially, my folks for being so super supportive and never, you know, trying to get me to waver from you know, what I wanted to do and being a musician, you know. So and there's many others. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of people that have helped me out in my career. So yeah, I mean, you know, my family, I think, you know, most importantly, it was them, you know.
Absolutely. And I'm going to pull up a comment we have here. Someone's asking you, Mr. Tony Roll is asking, why do you speak about your 335? I'm looking for one, and more info about it would be welcome. Can you give Mr. Tony Roll any information there?
What was the first part? Why do I speak about it?
Yeah, your 335. He's looking for one and wants more information about it.
Yeah, it's just, you know, this is a 1969 Gibson 335. It's an extremely versatile guitar, and if I'm not playing straight ahead country music, I would probably be playing this guitar. It's just a really solid instrument. There's not a lot of moving parts, kind of like a Telecaster. There's no floating bridge or crazy stuff going on. It's just a, you know, it's a super solid instrument. Great for all kinds of music, you know, blues, jazz, rock and roll, funk, country. I mean, guys play indie rock, hard rock, you know. There's a ton of different stuff you can do with the 335. It's just a great guitar to have in your arsenal. For me, a Telecaster and a 335 is what I'm going to take to a gig. I'm not really a Strat player or Les Paul or anything like that. It just depends on what you like. But I would highly recommend finding one, man. Make sure it's you know, make sure you get, you know, I don't know what you can afford, but try to get the nicest one you can. I mean, because that makes a big difference. But yeah, it's a great guitar, man. The 335 is a beautiful sounding instrument. You know, it's you can, you know, from jazzy sounds. To country stuff, you know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do on this this guitar. So yeah, man, I highly recommend getting a 335.
Wow, that's awesome. We actually had another question come in. I know we want to get back to talking about your family, but I'd love to answer this question from Ralph Johns. He says, do you have any plans to tour the UK? If not, he'll come all the way to Nashville to see you. Looks like you have a fan here. Do you ever go to the UK to tour?
Actually, I haven't been there on my own, but I've been there I have been there a bunch of times, but I'm going to, we'll be in Dublin, Ireland, Manchester, and London in October with John Oates, kind of early-ish October. So look for us there. Come out and see us with John, man. It'll be a great show.
Awesome. And one more question came in. What club should a new person in Nashville go to meet the most in-touch people? I know you're very involved in Nashville, know a lot of people there. Any insider tips?
Yeah, it's not really so much what clubs are. It's what's going on there and on a particular night that might fit what the road that you're wanting to go down. So, I mean, if you're in town and you're an indie rock musician and you go to, I don't know, vintage country night at some place, then it's probably not going to be the right fit for you. So Nashville has a lot of great clubs, but it depends on who's playing there. So it's kind of less about the venue and more who's playing at the venue. So I would say search out, what fits, your thing, and then try to tailor that to where you're going to, maximize your networking, here in town. So, I mean, it's just something you gotta spend a lot of time here, man. You gotta get out. You gotta see what works and see what doesn't. There's no real. That's the $1 million question, right? So there's no real easy answer to that. I would just say, scour the paper, get on Just Do It, that app that kind of tells you all the great things that are going on nightly musically in Nashville, and get out and try to meet as many people as you can.
Wow, that's really great. I know that that's just so important in this area of music, and networking is so critical. We have another question here. They asked, how were the gigs at D's? Do you have any more dates there?
Yeah, next Thursday I'll be there, and then we're doing a bunch of Saturdays in June with Dylan Altman and all these guys that I play with, Jimmy Wallace from Joe Walsh's band, and some of the guys from the Wallflowers and all these different guys. So we'll be doing that Saturdays in June from 10 to 1. And then next Thursday, I dropped my pick. Next Thursday, we'll be doing like soul and R&B, funk, blues stuff with Charles Wig Walker, who's a 78-year-old soul singer that's been in Nashville for a long time. He was on the same circuit as James Brown and Al Green and all those guys. Played with Jimi Hendrix and worked for the original American Gangster up in New York City. So he's a great friend of mine, an amazing human being and musician. So he's going to be playing. We'll back him up with an organ trio, which will be me on this guitar, a guy named Charles Treadway on B3 organ, and an amazing drummer that played with Robin Ford for years named Wes Little. So come check that out. That'll be this coming Thursday from 8 to 9:45, which we might go a little later, 8 to 10 or something like that. But yeah, D's is great, man. It's becoming the new spot to play in Nashville because this town is growing so much that we're having to find these cool little hole-in-the-wall places to play that don't micromanage our music and let us come in and be creative and do what we want to do. So that's what we're searching for here in town.
Awesome. You got even more questions. They just keep coming in. I know we're going to get back to these Mother's Day questions, but
that keeps me stocked with material.
Yeah, we have this isn't so much a question, but really a compliment. He says, Area 51 UK says, I love the duo with Papa Stash you did. Everyone should check it out. It's so good. Oh,
cool. Thanks. He's become a good friend, and I've seen his stuff on YouTube for a long time, and he's got an amazing group of followers because he cares about what he's doing. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't let his ego get in the way or anything. I mean, he's very supportive. He's comfortable playing rhythm guitar for guys like me and some friends of mine that go on his show, and he gets it. He sees the big picture. He's not trying to, show off. So I think he's truly in what he does to help people out and learn to be better on their instruments. And he's just a fun, cool guy to hang out with. So I'm looking forward to doing more with him. I actually talked to him yesterday about maybe going out to California and kind of partnering up with him on a couple little videos just for fun, you know. So yeah, man. I mean, yeah, Papa's great at what he does, and of course, you know, I gotta say it. I mean, if I was gonna sign up for lessons on any platform, it would be ArtistWorks, because I know what this company is capable of doing, and I know how they held my feet to the fire when I was putting my curriculum together, made sure it was seamless. They've got a beautiful studio out in Napa, California, you know, that's just state of the art, and they make sure that they get the most out of their teachers, which, you know, is challenging for us, and it makes the curriculums at the highest bar that they can be for everybody that's subscribing, and the video exchanges and all that stuff. It's a beautiful thing. So got to throw that in there too.
Absolutely. And we'll definitely be talking a little bit more in this interview here about what ArtistWorks, what you do on there, and how you're passing down sound there. Love to get a few more questions we got here in the comments, and then we'll get through all of this. I know we can. So Neil asks, when you are playing outside, do you have a set of scale shapes you are visualizing, and what are those scale shapes?
Yeah, I mean, you know, these are all questions that have taken me 30 years to you know, develop in my playing. So these aren't answers that are just going to immediately, you know, you're not going to be able to do this kind of stuff overnight. It's going to be, there is no just easy way to do any of this. So that's why we have these, you know, online lesson classes, because it takes a long time. One trick that I will show you is, you know, a lot of times I use major 7 arpeggios to play over a certain chord. So if I'm in, say I'm in A dominant 7, let's see. If I'm in A dominant 7 chord, I'm going to play over G major 7. So A blues, and then G major 7. So that's something that I use a lot. Other than that, I mean, we would have to get into a pretty lengthy lesson for me to show you kind of how all that works and kind of see where you're at as a player. But that's one trick that I use a lot that works. It also works if you're playing in A minor. You go up to the minor 3rd and play out a C major 7. So if I'm in A minor, C major 7 works over A minor, G major 7 works over A dominant 7, and that works for every key that you're in. So I hope that helps, but that's a good trick right there.
Yeah, Guthrie, am I correct in saying that you probably have more lessons about that on your site, or you could work with a student through video exchange on something like that? Oh,
absolutely. Yeah, that's what I mean. So to get, you know, what I can barely scratch the surface on that subject with what we're doing today here, but yeah, I mean, of course, yeah, I mean, I can get as far into that as you want to go with the video exchanges, and I do with people that are asking about. I mean, I play a lot of country music, but I mean, obviously, I'm playing. You know, if I sit down and pick up the guitar, I'm going. You know, my personality is all that stuff mixed together. So, if people want to learn funk, blues, whatever it is, I mean, I can help you out. But yeah, it's easier, and you get more one-on-one time if we did the video exchanges and all that stuff. So I'm assuming you're a member of ArtistWorks if you're on this thing, or maybe you're not. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we have people on here who are members and not members. So we have
all right, cool. Yeah, well.
Yeah, so we got tons of questions in the queue, and we're going to get to them, but not right now. Let's get back to kind of our whole theme of talking today, which is about passing down sound and really what we inherit from our parents and how we bring that to other people in the world, and how we continue these generations of music just going and going. So I'd love to, yeah.
I mean, I didn't never think that I was going to get into education on purpose. I never sought out to do that. I always just wanted to play my instrument and be in a great band or tour with a great artist or play on sessions or whatever, you know. And then as I got a little older and got more, you know, kind of established, I guess, whatever, people started asking me, hey man, do you give lessons? Can I learn something from you? Would you show me this? Would you show me that? I want to learn some country stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then I thought, well, I'm not really a teacher, but, and I don't, at that point, I'm like, well, I really don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I've learned how to do this on my own and by ear and by feel, which is super important. And, but, as people kept asking me, I was like, well, man, maybe this could be an additional income stream also. Why am I not thinking more about doing this? So it was kind of out of necessity that I did it. I wanted to help these people out that were asking, but I also thought, well, hey, I could, when I'm off, on a Tuesday, I could teach 3 or 4 lessons and make up for not having a session that day or whatever it is. And so I just started doing it. And I started teaching all kinds of people, kids and hobbyists and professionals here in Nashville that wanted to break out of what they were doing and learn a different style. So, then I started getting more and more involved in education. As the years went on, I had more and more students. I started doing the Skype lessons. I did some stuff with some little independent companies that are kind of like ArtistWorks, but really didn't have it together quite like you guys do. And then I started getting involved with some different colleges and doing clinics and workshops. And I even started a school here in Nashville, postgraduate music school that is happening over in Berry Hill and stuff. But so I got more and more involved in the education thing. And I think people kind of gravitated towards me to help with stuff like this because I'm not a school musician and I'm not just going to give you the same old stuff that everybody else does that says, okay, hey, you got to learn all these scales, you got to learn all these chords, you got to learn all this stuff that doesn't even sound like music until 20 years of practicing that stuff. You got to incorporate some heart and soul into this stuff. You got to teach people how to make music immediately. They have to know that they're making something that sounds musical rather than just sitting around in their house going, I mean, you're going to do that and you're going to quit because it doesn't sound like music. So you got to bring some of these other elements in, that make it fun to keep you going. So, that, and then getting the call from ArtistWorks to do the country electric guitar curriculum. We jumped into that thing, been doing that for probably 3 years now. And so yeah, it's great. But I love giving back to people and trying to help them out, because that's when I was a kid, that's what people did to me, did for me. They shared a ton of stuff. And I mean, there's some guys you'll run into that are kind of closed off. They don't want to share their secrets and stuff like that. And they're just fooling themselves because no matter how much you give somebody, I'm still going to sound like me. I could show somebody everything I know from start to finish. And I have on the ArtistWorks curriculum. It was an open book. I shared everything. You're still going to sound like you. I'm still going to sound like me. You can take everything. You can take all my guitars, all my amps, all my knowledge and everything. You're still not going to sound like me. And I'm not going to sound like you. So why not share it all,
Absolutely. And I know that you're so passionate about passing on sound to all of your students at ArtistWorks. And though you don't have children of your own to pass down sound to, you've been doing that through our platform. You would say that great.
Yeah. And I run into, I'm not going to say I mentor these kids, but I run into a lot of young players in Nashville. I'm 39. I run into guys that are, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 years old that are really, really great players and that are going to be fantastic. And they'll come out to my gigs and I'll let them sit in and I'll go watch them and we'll hang out and we'll trade some licks and stuff like that. And I mean, that's just part of it. I mean, you got to hang with these kids and I learn stuff from them. They learn stuff from me and we have fun and they come jam. And that's how you get better. You got to play with other people,
That's what we hear from a lot of our instructors, definitely you included. Love to go back to some of these questions here because we continue to have them coming in. People just have a lot of questions for you, Guthrie, which is really great.
That's great. That's great. I know we got off to a little bit of a rocky start there, but thanks for hanging in there with us. And trust me, folks, it's all on me because I'm not a computer savvy dude. So the more we do this, the smoother it'll go.
Yeah, I think you have some pretty patient people here, which is really nice.
That is nice because I'm not.
We have a question here from Ralph Johns. What musician would you most like to get the chance to work with? I know you've worked with some pretty big names, really cool guys. Anyone out there you'd like to work with?
Uh, uh, Man, I'm not sure who I want to work with, but I'll tell you who I'd really like to meet is one of my heroes that I've never met before, and I've got to work and meet with a lot of them. Is Mark Knopfler. I'd really like to meet Mark Knopfler. I've never met him. I've barely seen one of his shows at the Ryman. I caught like the last couple songs one night because I was working too. But yeah, I'd love to meet him. I've got to meet a ton of my heroes. I got to hang out and meet Jeff Beck. I work with John Oates, who's an amazing guy. I've got to work with a bunch of my childhood heroes, Sam Bush and Jerry Douglas. All these guys are friends of mine now. But that's just kind of how it is in Nashville. We're super close to these guys and all that. I can't think of anybody. I mean, I don't know. I get to work with the greatest songwriters and musicians here in Nashville. Just worked with a guy named Sean Camp last night, who's incredible. I don't know. That's a tough question. Maybe Van Morrison, who I actually met in San Francisco a couple months ago. Wow. I'd like to work with him. I mean, I'd like to play with Sting, maybe.
Some pretty fun names you included there. That's fun. Yeah. We got another question from Mr. Tony Roll. Is Guthrie thinking about joining with Josh Smith or Kirk Fletcher in a Geiger album? Either of those names seem like people you'd be working with?
Yeah, Josh is a friend of mine, and Kirk, I don't know very well, but he's a super nice guy. They're great guys, great players. They're more based in L.A. I'm not sure if Kirk's ever blown through Nashville. I know Josh has been here a couple times. He used to work with a friend of mine, Taylor Hicks, so we've been around each other a little bit. I don't know if we're going to do anything collaborative. I know me and Josh did a clinic out in Oklahoma last year or maybe the year before, which was a blast. I mean, but I think, Josh is doing his trio where he sings and plays guitar, and he's promoting his own band, and I'm trying to promote mine. Man, we're all just trying to promote our own stuff, So yeah. If the opportunity came along to all play together, I think it would be a blast, but I'm not sure if it's something that we're pursuing.
Absolutely. Very cool. Got another one here from Sean and Ben. Hi, Guthrie. Greetings to you from Dublin. What's your take in picking, i.e. pick, slanting, hybrid, etc., and what do you use or recommend? I know this is something you do know quite a lot about.
Yeah, and by the way, so you got, hey, howdy, by the way, from Nashville. I love Dublin and I love Ireland. You got to come see us with John Oates when we're over there in October. So check out the sites on all that. Come say hi to us. So one thing, when I grew up, I was playing a lot of bluegrass music. So I think that something that helped me out a lot was learning how to flat pick, which is playing bluegrass style. So that's a lot of down up picking, which is like this. So like let me turn this thing on real quick here. So be more like this, So it's a lot of down up picking. So one thing you can do for that is just, whatever you're practicing, if it's a scale, just make sure you're doing down up with your right hand, which is so it's down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So that'll improve your right hand immensely, and it'll really connect your right and your left hand together to where they're firing off at the same time. And then, once you get a nice, comfortable right hand going, you just start incorporating these other fingers, your little finger, middle finger, and ring finger, And so that way you can play these chords, like a piano. You can play. So you can start using your fingers in there. As far as the country stuff goes, I'm using a lot of my middle finger. And then for the double stops, I'm using my ring finger. So that's like if I'm playing this, I'm using my pick, and then my two fingers for these two notes. So, spend some time getting that together. And of course, you know, not to sound too much like a commercial, but I do teach that a lot on the curriculum where I get into the hybrid picking, and it's just something that you got to spend a lot of time with, and eventually it'll start feeling natural to you. But you know, for the single note stuff, I'm using my middle finger, you know. So a lot of that stuff comes in, even if I'm playing something bluesy, that hybrid style will still come in. You know, if you're doing something like this. So I hope that helps. That's also something that takes kind of a while to explain, which I know we don't have time to, but feel free to reach out and ask me more about that. I'll get more in depth with it. But yeah, man, just try to incorporate those fingers when you can, doing some of those, like, you know, just real simple stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know you do have a ton of stuff on that on your site. Yeah. And it actually ended up being that Sean and Ben are saying they will be there in Dublin for your show.
Oh, great.
So really great stuff there. Yeah, cool. And we got a compliment here, looks like from one of your students, which I know is a really powerful thing to get. They say, I'm a 20-plus year recording and live performing musician and just started your lessons. Your perspective has been one revelation after the next. And like you said, all the lights went on. Thank you, Rich.
Oh, very cool. Happy to hear that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure you get a lot of feedback like that from your students.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, and we got a question here from Ari. What are some good ideas going from 1 to 2M or a 6M? The progression comes up a lot, and I find it a bit tricky to come up with something interesting for it.
It's all about using those chord shapes. Hey, Ari, how you doing, man? You know, if I'm going from G to A minor to 4, you know, I would just play something right out of that chord change. Let's see if you're going. If I'm down here, so I'm going to the 4 chord. I mean, I'm going to the 5 chord actually. All right, but like you know, that kind of stuff. Any of those little chord sections, because I'm thinking A minor right there. And if you go into the 6th minor, you just keep playing the same thing you would play in G because it works over E minor. So if I'm playing. Couple weird notes in there, but anyway, that, you know, you're sticking with the same thing, because look, here's G, there's E minor, so you really so that's G. So E minor and G, it's all about just where the bass note lands. You're playing the same stuff. We can get into that more, you know.
Absolutely. I know that you were going to have a special guest here today. Is that still happening?
Yeah, give me 2 seconds.
Sure.
Oh shit, sorry, Mom. Yeah, come on in. Let me get you a chair here. I know.
Where do you want me here?
Just sit right in that brown chair.
Hi.
Hello.
Awesome. Guthrie, do you want to introduce us to our new guest?
This is my mom, Mary Trapp. She just flew in last night from sunny California.
Ooh.
Greetings all.
Yeah.
This is Amanda from ArtistWorks.
Hi, Amanda.
Yeah, great to meet you. So as you know, we're meeting here today to talk a little bit about our initiative Pass Down Sound, which is our initiative around Mother's and Father's Day. And we want to talk about the ways that we inherit music from our parents and how we pass that down. And Guthrie's given a little bit of insight into the fact that you weren't necessarily a musician as he was growing up, but you really did introduce him to a lot of musical styles. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yes. We in the Trapp family, we love music. In my family, I really wasn't exposed to a lot of music, but in my teen years, in the little town where I grew up, it was all about going out dancing to these little dance places in high school, teen town, and there was one called Chatterbox, and so my first love of music was through that, and I still to this day love dancing. And I remember the first folk song I heard was "If I Had a Hammer," and it was in the basement of our house where we had a pool table set up, and I had a little record player down there, and I had friends over, and we were playing music, and that was one of the records that I had back then. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of really interesting musical styles in your family. That's really great. Guthrie was also telling me you recently took up kind of guitar as a hobbyist. Is that true?
Yes. A friend of mine started taking lessons at this place in Pensacola, Florida called Blues Angel Music. Mm-hmm. She got me a gift certificate for 4 lessons, but I had already taken a few lessons with a neighbor down the road from us in our hometown now, Lillian, Alabama.
Okay.
And she's a songwriter and plays guitar, and she's all about environmental activism and going into schools and playing her songs and trying to teach, educate children about the importance of respecting the earth.
Oh, that's such a powerful use of music. Would you say that taking up a hobby like an instrument, are you inspired by Guthrie to do that, or what really inspired you to want to do that?
Well, a challenge really, because I'm my 70th birthday, March 20th. Mm-hmm. So anything I can do to keep my mind active, and I'm also physically active with walking and hiking and and doing yoga and all that. So
they just got back from Yosemite. They were out in Yosemite hiking all over the place.
That is gorgeous.
We just got back last night about 1:30. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on after such a late flight. It's so exciting.
Oh, no problem. I'm happy to do it. Yeah, we called it our big tree trip.
Really? Did you
we had never seen the redwoods, and we had never gone to Sequoia and all that. So that was so special.
Oh,
Very
special. Well, I want to actually give a challenge to your son right now. I want to see if he can actually play a song for you for Mother's Day. Think you could do that, Guthrie?
Yeah, sure, I can try. I don't play a lot of songs. My solo act is not very strong, you know.
No worries. Just maybe play something for your mom, something that reminds you of her.
Okay, I think she'd probably like this song. Here, let's see.
I like anything he plays. So.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I'm easy to please.
Oh, that's so sweet. Do you guys have any Mother's Day plans together for this weekend?
Well, I'm off for the next couple days, and she's in town, so we'll probably ride around Nashville and maybe do some shopping and go have some nice dinners and lunches and
that sounds great.
Drink some good coffee and maybe go hear some music if something's going on. You know, we'll hook up with. She's got a lot of friends here too now since she's been coming to town for so long, so we'll hook up with them and just we'll have some good hang time and.
Yeah, some great quality time together. I just have a couple more questions as we wrap this up. And one
Sure.
I was talking actually, Ms. Trapp, to your son yesterday about you choosing to be a hobbyist at this age. And I'm not sure if you know, but your journey is one that's so similar to a lot of students we have on ArtistWorks. And I wanted Guthrie to speak to just the ways that you remind him of his students that he's working with.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of my students are, I would say, they're not working musicians. They're hobbyists. They're doing this for fun. But kind of like we might have talked about yesterday a little bit, just because there's guys like, even the guys that I look up to that are monsters and the greatest guitar players and musicians walking the planet, that doesn't mean that you have to pick up that instrument and get to that place to have a good time. You can pick it up, and even if you're strumming along and like my dad, he'll go play with his friends and just kind of strum along. Mm-hmm. He's not going to be a virtuoso musician, but he's having fun with it. And it's camaraderie. It's playing with your friends. You've got something that you can that takes you out of your work week, or like for me, I like to go shoot pool, or I like to go, whatever I do away from the guitar, something that's still, it could be something that's still a challenge or hand-eye coordination or whatever, but I can completely get away from music. I feel like that's probably the same thing with a lot of these guys that, I'm very fortunate to be able to play music for a living, but these guys, they might not that they're not fortunate, but they're just in a different line of work. So, when they get home in the evening, they might turn on ArtistWorks and go to the next lesson, and that's their challenge. It gets them away from everything they do during the week. Get a little bit of a different, just like she said, something that just keeps their brain going.
Absolutely, and that's why I said there's so much resemblance here between your motives, Ms. Trapp, and the students we work with, which is so powerful to me. I'd love to just hear, how you said you're very supportive of Guthrie's music, and do you go to a lot of shows, and are you proud of the work he's doing to pass on sound to these students?
I'm extremely proud of the work he's doing. Mm-hmm. And I've been proud of him ever since he started playing music, and he was 8 years old when that happened. But the fact that he's teaching and he's willing to share, I call it sharing his gold. Mm. And I think, yeah, it's very important. I had no idea that he would become such a teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, we've known for years how talented he is, and we've always been very proud of that. But mostly we're proud of the person he has become, you know, with willing to share, high integrity, and just extremely amazing.
She's my biggest fan.
On his instruments.
I can,
He also plays mandolin and bass, and you know, he's a multi-instrumentalist.
talented, and we're so glad to have him on our team here. And I think his students, as we've seen, I mean, we've continued to get comments and questions pouring in, just a lot of love and praise for the work he's been doing with students. So I want you to know that this Mother's Day weekend. And thank you both for coming in.
Well, as Amanda knows, I'm not going to make it in computer programming, so.
You have skill sets way beyond anything anyone can do in computer programming.
Oh man, well thanks.
Yeah. So
are there any last minute questions or anything?
Oh my goodness, there are so many questions, Guthrie.
Let's get to them.
I'll read some great comments we had here. We got Happy Mother's Day and Sunday, Miss Trapp. I hope Guthrie spoiled you. And I'm sure.
Yeah, thanks for letting her come on, Amanda.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Anytime. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Okay. You want to answer a few last minute questions here, Guthrie?
Sure. Yeah. All right. And now for our next guest.
Or not. We have a question here. What other instruments do you play, and do you play them in recordings? I know your mom just talked a little bit about this.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I play a lot of acoustic guitar, and I play a lot of mandolin and bouzouki and different stringed instruments. I play some bass. I really enjoy playing the bass. And I do that when I can. I mean, the bass is something that I would just love, and I've got an old Fender bass that I like to play. But if you know, I mean, there's so many amazing bass players that are truly real bass players in Nashville. I get a chance to do it here and there if I need to on a project or something. But mainly the guitar, you know, all the electrics, acoustic, baritone, all that stuff, obviously. And then, you know, the mandolin and stuff, I really enjoy playing a lot. Not those type of instruments, mandolin, mandocello, bouzouki, stuff like that, which, you know, I tune them all the same way. So it's really not that big a deal. One's just, they're just different sizes for different sounds, you know, on records and stuff. But yeah, I love playing that stuff. I grew up playing a lot of bluegrass. So, you know.
Yeah, and we have a lot of other teachers on ArtistWorks teaching those, and I'm sure you're familiar with some of them. And
yeah, a lot of those guys are my good friends. You know, Brian Sutton lives here in town, and of course is amazing. And you know, a lot of these guys I've met on the road with Jerry Douglas, Mike Marshall, and Tony Trishka, and a bunch of these kind of guys. So pretty cool, yeah.
Awesome. We have a question here. Have you ever developed any repetitive strain injuries from hybrid picking? This question giver is starting to have issues with that.
Luckily I have not. I mean, I go through having some stiff hands, and I've got a knuckle here on my left hand ring finger that's, I don't know what if it's arthritis or what, but I mean, it's, you know, kind of like looks a little strange, but I don't know what that is. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't, as long as something's not painful, I'm not going to the doctor. So, you know, so I don't know what that is, but my hands are in pretty good shape, I guess. And my dad's a massage therapist. So, you know, I know a lot of stretches and stuff to do. So, you know, there's a lot of things. This is a really good stretch. You know, if you can do this. So basically anything that, you know, our hands are already doing this. So we need to do this. So, you know, taking your hand and just stretching out like that and pulling this up like that. That's a good stretch. This is a good stretch. This is a good stretch. You know, just taking your fingers and doing this kind of stuff. That's good stretching. I'm always stretching my fingers out, you know, making sure that they're, you know, I just do all the stretching I can do. You know, massage your upper and your forearm. That's going to get real tense. You know, make sure you massage that. You know, shake your hands out. There's a bunch of things you can do. Those are all really great. Those are great stretches and stuff you can do. But I recommend going and getting a massage and tell them, you know, to work on your forearms and all the way up into your shoulders and your back, because all that stuff. I mean, from playing, and we're doing so much of this, you know, we're like this, so we need to do more of this. So I'll hang off the end of my bed and do some stretches. I'll lay on the floor. I try to do as much as I can to keep that, at least my arms in good shape, you know.
Absolutely. I think that's great advice. We have another question here from Emil Ernebro. I might have just butchered that last name, unfortunately. But his question is, are you nervous performing live? Do you ever still get nervous?
You know, I don't now. I used to when I was a kid. I'd always wear my ball cap and I'd sit and play like this because I didn't want anybody to see my face. But so, you know, it just comes with experience. The more you do it, I mean, you know, and it depends on who I'm around. You know, I don't care how many people are in the audience because I know that they're not hearing the stuff that we're hearing on stage as musicians. Not only are we so into what we're doing, but we're also like, we're not only hearing what we're doing, but we're feeling what we're doing under our fingers. So if something feels like we're making a little bit of a mistake to us, which could be, you know, feels devastating, you go back and listen to it on a live recording and it sounds fine. So it's all in our heads of how we, like, you know, really put ourselves under the microscope, which is a good thing because that's why we're good players. Our bar is raised high. But on the other hand, you know, the audience is not going to really translate that in the same way. So once you learn that, it really makes yourself, you know, more comfortable with being on stage in front of a lot of people. I've played in front of a lot of people, and I've played in front of, you know, tiny clubs where people are sitting right in front of you. It's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer the tiny clubs because people are right up front and engaged in the music. But, you know, that's kind of a long answer, but really some people have phobias with it. You know, some people have to take, you know, pills to get on stage and be able to feel comfortable. I know guys that are like total professional musicians that still get stage fright. That's just kind of something like getting car sick or something. You know, it just happens to some people, and some people it doesn't. But for me, you know, the only time I'll get a little bit nervous is if, you know, depending on who's on stage. Like the other night, I got to sit in with one of my favorite, you know, guitar players of all time, Kenny Greenberg. He's a buddy of mine, plays with Kenny Chesney, but he plays on a ton of records. Really great musician. And he got me up to sit in with him and Jimmy Hall, this band, and some of my friends and stuff. And I'm standing in the middle of two of my favorite people ever, musicians. And at that point, I'm like, man, I want to make sure that I'm not, you know, I'm going to make sure I'm on the top of my game playing with those guys. And you know, you can get a little intimidated by certain people that you're playing with. But as far as getting up in front of people, I'm not scared to do that anymore.
More comes from the people you're playing with, it sounds like, at this point in your career than anything.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I'm playing for the people that I'm on stage with versus the audience. You know.
Absolutely. We got even more questions. Hi, Guthrie. Are you thinking of transitional notes when moving from chord to chord?
A little bit, yeah. More kind of, you know, the positions that I'm in and kind of you know, these chord shapes. So like if I'm going from the G to the 4 chord, so right there I just went from G to C. I'm going right to that C shape, you know, where I'm going right to that note. So I'm just using the pentatonic scale. And then right there, that takes me to my C chord. And that takes me back up to G. Or right to there. Or if I'm going to D, I'm just thinking about the shape of the chord and what you know, how that relates to where I am in my position. So if I'm there, so I'm thinking about the harmony that I want to create, the melodic content that I want to create, and, you know, but I'm also thinking that combined with my familiarity with the fingerboard, where I'm not jumping from, I'm not limited to, because I know the fingerboard, so I'm not having to jump from like this G all the way up to like my C. The only one I know is here. So if I only know where 1 or 2 C's are on the fingerboard, then I'm limited to have to go to those, and it's not going to sound right harmonically. So to create some really nice melodic stuff to where you're playing, like I'm using those notes. I'm creating little melodies versus having to just go to the chord that I know. So it's really about knowing those chord shapes inside and out, and knowing how to visualize the triads, and versus the scales. But it's all combined. Once you learn the chord shapes, and then you learn the scales around them, you have to know those. It's and then you have to learn some of the arpeggios just to be able to outline the chord. You got to know those, because otherwise you're really going to be limited to the if you only know 1 G here and 1 C here and 1 D there, then you're pretty limited. But it's all about just you really want to be thinking about what you're playing versus you have to use these shapes and these things that we always will on the guitar. That's like the fundamentals and the foundations of playing. But you want to be able to get away from that and make music, which is, you want to be able to incorporate this, the harmonic content of playing something that you're hearing or that really makes sense musically, and that is a nice melody, and it doesn't have to be complicated whatsoever. So I try to get people to really, you got to have these fundamentals, and you got to know that stuff really well, but you also have to not overthink it, because I see 90% of the people that I teach they really overthink it, and they want to know what scales to use over what chords and all this kind of stuff. And I'm really trying to come up with some concepts that really simplify that, to where you can just really start making music and seeing those shapes. Because in order to be, you have to be soulful, and you have to have great feel, and you have to have some, a little bit of something inside of you to be able to do this. But you do also have to know these fundamentals of the guitar. Otherwise, unless you're a magician, you're not going to be able to get around on this thing without knowing some of those fundamentals. So it's all that stuff combined,
Yeah, absolutely. And it just goes to the real depth of information people can get on your site and through working with you that they can't get here. Right.
Yeah, and I try to share as much of that kind of interpersonal stuff about playing music as I can with the technical stuff, because like I said, you do have to have a good balance of both. But at some point you just got to forget all that stuff and just play. So but yeah, it's kind of a fine line. You kind of have to have some of these fundamentals, but you don't want to overthink it to the point of not getting anywhere,
Absolutely. We have another question. We have quite a few. Dave Bashia says, you mentioned being into soul music before. What are some of your favorite soul albums and artists?
What was the question again?
Dave Bashia says, you mentioned being into soul music before. What are some of your favorite soul albums and artists?
A lot of the classic stuff. More on the funk side. I love, James Brown's great. All those guitar parts on James Brown, all the Memphis stuff, all those, man, it's hard to say. All the classic stuff, the Al Green, Donny Hathaway Live is a great record. All the Al Green, all the Otis Redding, all the blues stuff, all the Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and Willie Dixon and all that stuff, all the blues catalog, all the soul and R&B. Golly. Wilson Pickett, to the Stax stuff in Detroit. The Memphis stuff, the Detroit stuff. Yeah, that's hard to say. I'm not a great music a historian, so I mean, I know what I like when I hear it. But all that stuff. I mean, if you get into any of that stuff, man, I mean, it's great. I love all the Van Morrison stuff. Live in San Francisco is a great record with a ton of guests and great R&B, great band, great parts, great playing. You know, you got to just try to pick up what you can off those records. If you like something, try to learn it. If you don't like it, don't spend any time learning it because somebody told you to. You know, don't listen to a record because somebody told you that you needed to listen to it. You know, if you listen to it and you don't like it, then don't listen. Hey, man, I'm not a huge Steely Dan fan. Everybody in the world loves Steely Dan. I appreciate what they did, but you know what? When I get into my car, that's not the records I'm putting on. So just because somebody tells you that the Beatles and Led Zeppelin were the greatest bands that ever walked the planet doesn't mean you have to like them. Just find what you like. I mean, I love a lot of obscure stuff because, you know, I've had people turn me on to music, and if I like it, I'm a fan for life. If not, you know, I'm moving on to something else that moves me and that I think that I might be able to learn something from, or I'll listen to music that I'll never be able to learn anything from. I just like the music. You know, I like Bruno Mars. I'm not going to sit down and jam to Bruno Mars with my guitar, but if I'm going out, I'm putting Bruno Mars on, you know? So it's just like all this stuff just doesn't need to be overthought. If you like something, try to learn something from it. If you love Wes Montgomery, that doesn't mean you have to learn his entire catalog. That means if you hear one lick that you think is cool, if you just want to take this one lick, you know, just learn that. And at least you're playing one Wes Montgomery lick. You know, chances are we're not going to sit down and transcribe these entire solos. I mean, there's people out there doing that, but I'm not going to. But, you know, just that's kind of a way to look at it. You know, this stuff doesn't have to be so clinical and overthought and what artists you need to listen to. Hey, man, check, you know, go to Spotify, pull up R&B and just let it play for a couple of days, and you're going to find the artist that you really love. Some of it's great. Some of it you might not dig, you know. But yeah, I mean, that's a long answer, but that's kind of how I look at this stuff these days, you know.
No, I think it's a really great perspective. Absolutely. And we have more questions here. I love how much engagement you get on these. It's amazing.
Yeah, let's go.
Just want to talk to you about things. I'm not sure what this question means. Hopefully you do. Jeff James asked, were you ever able to get the green telly back where it was?
Oh, my old telly. You know what? I've kind of forgotten about it. It's sitting over at Glazer's shop. I'm trying to get it refretted one more time. I don't know what happened with that guitar, man. It really went south on me. So in the meantime, I've been playing my Floyd telly, which I think is downstairs. I was using it last night, but between the Floyd, I mean the Russ Paul tellys that I have now, and then this guitar, those are the ones that I use the most. But yeah, I would love to get that guitar back into working condition. I just hope I can. So thanks for asking.
Oh, maybe they're a student of yours, someone who's following you closely at the very least.
Yeah.
We get a question here from Sarah. Do you recommend practicing with a looper?
Yeah, that's a great way to practice. Actually, that's a fantastic way to practice. There's a train going to go by here in just a second, but I live on down by the train tracks. So yeah, I would say, you know, practicing with a looper is great. You just want to make sure whatever you're practicing to is in time. So that's why I encourage people to play along to records or with some sort of a drum machine. I mean, metronomes can be boring and they're crucial, man. You gotta really learn how to play with a metronome, which is fantastic practice. But you know, I've known guys that have practiced too much to a metronome, and it makes their playing sound very stiff. So you want to play with something that has some feel to it. I recommend playing along to records. I think the looper is a great idea because you can come up with your own chord progressions. You can add different parts. You can do rhythmic stuff. You can do all kinds of cool stuff. Just make sure that what you're practicing to is locked into some sort of correct time. So that's a big thing. The metronome is great. It is tough to play along to. You really have to practice playing along to the metronome. You'll think it's speeding up and slowing down. It's not. It's you. But a drum machine can be fun because it's a little bit more musical. If you want to add a bass part to it, then you've really got a great rhythm track to be able to practice to. But yeah, the loopers are fun, man. I would say keep it up, you know.
Awesome. Yeah. Totally following along with that, and that seems like great advice. We have 2 more questions here, and then I think we'll wrap it up and just talk a little bit about ArtistWorks, and then we'll call it a day. Does that sound good?
That sounds good to me.
Awesome. So we have a question here from Nordine. Do you have some special exercise to target the right notes in a chord progression? In a chord progression?
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer in a short amount of time. So, you know, the target notes are the ones that are going to make it sound like you're actually changing chords. So, you know, once again, knowing those shapes, and I mean more of being able to pick out the key notes in a chord without even looking at it, or without having your hand there. So you know cold that when I'm in G and I'm playing this chord, all I have to do to go to C is literally, I'm going from B to C. I'm not really changing anything. These notes are staying the same. So I'm going. So I'm going from one chord to the next without really even changing. I'm not doing any kind of acrobatics. I'm literally changing one note. I'm putting my little finger down on that C. So there's G, C, and then I'll lift up. So I'm going right down the scale to go to my D chord. So and I'll go right back down the scale to get back to my G chord. So I'm targeting the notes that make it sound like I'm changing chords, which are right out of the chord shape. So there's just a real simple, right? But I'm going. Those are really great to learn. Just those little harmonies, you know, two notes. So I'm really just going. But when I do it in harmony, it starts to sound more and more like music. So you're just targeting the notes that out of the chord and the scales that make it sound like you're going to the next chord. A lot of major thirds. You know, you're outlining the major third. So that was right up G, down the scale, and I'm ending on the major third of C. So that takes me to my C chord. Right back to G. The G shape, down a whole step is your D7 shape. So when I go there, so I'm going G to D7 to my D with the major third right here, and then resolve into that G right there. I know that's a lot of information, but that's a great way to do it because you're creating these really beautiful melodies right out of the chord shape. So I tell 99.9% of all my students, no matter what level they're on, you really have to go back and reevaluate how comfortable you are with knowing those chord shapes inside and out. And that's something that a lot of people really need to go back and spend some time doing, because that is the gateway to everything else on the fretboard.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's the exact information Nordine was looking for. And our last question today is from, it's a very difficult name, Kajedel. I'm very sorry if I said it wrong. They're from Oslo or Norway. And they have an amp question. What kind do you prefer? What settings? And have you ever tried a Fender Blues DeVille 410?
Yeah, those are great amps. Now, those are loud. Those are very loud amps, big, loud amps. They sound great, but you really got to crank them up to get the the tone that you're probably looking for out of them. And here's the thing with amps. So if you're only going to have one amp, you should probably have something that's like the size of a deluxe reverb, something that you can play a bigger venue and mic it and be okay. You can also play a small venue, still get a good tone, but you're not blowing people out of the water. If you're a working professional, you have to have a bunch of different amps, because you want to be able to turn the amps like a Fender amp with like a vintage Fender reverb amp, like a deluxe reverb or a Princeton reverb. Those amps don't even start sounding good until you get around 4 or sometimes even 5. And so what you want to be able to do is, like, I've got a 66 Fender Princeton reverb right here. If I took it to a coffee shop, I'd be able to turn it up pretty loud and get a good tone, but not be blowing people out of the water. You go to a little bigger club, you take your deluxe reverb to where you can crank that thing up to 4 or 5, and you're going to be able to get your tone and have enough power to be able to play in that room above a drummer or whatever you need to do. If you're playing outdoors, you know, have a super reverb or a twin or a pro reverb or maybe a Vibrolux or something where you can, again, turn it up to about 5, get a really nice bass tone before you incorporate any pedals. So it's about having the right size amp for the right venues you're playing. If all you do is play coffee shops, having a super reverb or a 410 Fender DeVille is it's a little bit pointless. It's overkill in the biggest way. And if you're out playing stadiums and all you have is a Princeton, unless you're Mike Campbell with Tom Petty, he can do it, but you're probably not going to have enough amp behind you. So if I was going to have one amp, it would probably be a deluxe reverb or a Vibrolux reverb, you know. But so that's kind of the thing. So that amp you have is a great sounding amp. It just matters if is it the right one for what you're doing in your musical you know, situation. So that's my take on that. I like to take these Fender amps and turn them up to about 4 or 5, unless I'm doing something like this where my volume's on like 2.5. But they still sound good. My treble is on about 4 or 5, depending on what guitar I'm playing. The telly is a little brighter, so I usually turn the treble down a little bit. 335 is a little darker. I usually turn it up about a notch or half. Bass is on about 4, sometimes 4.5. Reverb's on about 2.5 or 3. And then the tremolo I usually turn off and use a pedal. And then any overdrive I'll use a pedal and stuff like that for that amp. So that's what I like to use.
Awesome. Yeah, we've had, I just want to say, Guthrie, we've had over 70 questions that came in during the time we've been here.
Did we answer all of them?
We answered most of them, and some of them were just compliments and comments, and a lot of people saying hi to your mom, which was great.
Okay.
We really loved our special guest.
I'll pass that along.
Yeah, lots of great stuff there. So as we're wrapping up right now, if you want to give people a little insight into how you transfer all this knowledge onto ArtistWorks and how you're passing down sound there, just a couple minutes on that, and then we'll say goodbye to everybody. Yeah,
we gotta promote that a little bit. And you know, I'll say this. I thought about this the other day. I mean, if I was looking for a way to learn, and I've almost thought about contacting John over at ArtistWorks and asking him if I could have some, you know, a couple of the codes to like maybe the jazz school. I mean, I need to learn some more jazz stuff. I mean, so if I was going to do that, I would either take, me personally, I would probably either call one of my buddies in Nashville and get him to teach me a couple things, or I would get on ArtistWorks and go to the jazz school, and I'd probably go through the whole curriculum. Might not have time to do that, but you know, the thing about ArtistWorks is, first of all, as soon as I saw, when they first called me about doing this curriculum, I was about to sign with another company called Homespun, who's been in business for a long time. And luckily I talked to John and learned about ArtistWorks, and I ended up going with you guys, you know, because of the, you know, the technology that you guys have and the kind of the cutting edge platform that you guys have. And you've stayed current being online and all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of reasons, but the main reason why I didn't really question anything and we didn't have to go through a whole bunch of back and forth stuff was the fact that all the artists that I saw on your teaching roster that you already had before I even, you know, considered doing this, you know, it was guys like Brian Sutton, Mark Marshall, Tony Trischka, Andy Hall, Missy Raines, the Bluegrass School, you know, Martin Taylor, John Patitucci, Nathan East. I mean, I've been seeing these guys' names on record since I was a kid. So there was, you know, knowing those guys were involved with this company, there's no way that I was gonna, you know, try to get involved with anybody else. I knew it was the right thing to do. I mean, because those guys have such a high standard, they would not be involved in ArtistWorks if it wasn't a top-notch company. I've hung out with David and Patricia, the owners, a bunch of times. They've come to concerts. They've come to Nashville. We've hung. We've had dinner. We've had wine. We've had great hangs. We've talked about all kinds of new stuff. Me and John Graves have hung. We've spent time together. These are friends of mine. I like them as people. And when we started putting this curriculum together, these guys were, you know, they knew exactly what they wanted out of me. And of course, you know, it's my knowledge and stuff that is in the curriculum, but they knew exactly how to get what they wanted to keep this, you know, a seamless curriculum, with everything being totally sequential, from how to hold the pick to everything that I know up to this point on the guitar being, you know, available on this curriculum. Where I spent probably a couple months here in Nashville going to coffee shops and in my living room and just sitting down with a notepad and really getting into this curriculum and really mapping this out. And I would send drafts back to them. They would send drafts back to me and go, hey, this is great, but we need this, and this. I mean, these guys, they run this company like, you know, it's like a fine-tooth comb. So it really challenged me to put together this curriculum, and I'm proud of it. I mean, there's over 300 lessons. I think there's beginner, intermediate, and advanced. There's 5 camera angles. The audio is incredible, crystal clear. Everything's broken down, you know, to the, you know, most finite level. And on top of that, if you get through the curriculum and you have any questions at any step of the game, or you just want to reach out to me and ask about anything, you can do that via the video exchange, where I pull up my laptop, I look at the queue, I go to ArtistWorks, my ArtistWorks login, I see everybody's video exchanges. I might have, you know, 5 to 10 or 15 videos in there. I come into this room in my house, I turn my camera on, I pick up my guitar, I listen to all the video exchanges, listen to everybody's questions, listen to their playing, and then I respond. You know, I hit record and I sit here and I break this stuff down as the best that I can in the most simplistic way that I know how, to where it's clear to you guys, and we start this dialogue and we go back and forth. And I've got guys all over the world that are doing this, from you know, South Africa, Korea, Australia, you know, all over the place. And man, I love it. I mean, there's some great guys. I can't tell you how many people that have students that have come out to shows and have come to Acme in Nashville. They pop up at all these gigs, and it's great, man. There's a bunch of great guys here that are here for the same reason. They all want to learn, and I'm happy to do it. I mean, you know, and yeah, I mean, I can't say enough good things about this company. It's a great deal for me. It's a great deal for them. It's a great deal for the students. So, you know, I encourage everybody to at least check it out, you know.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Guthrie. I know people are checking out your school right now, and that's really exciting. Hopefully we'll join your hundreds of students already learning from you, and really join in on that community that you built there, that I'm sure you're very proud of, and it sounds like your mom's very proud of. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, Amanda, thank you, and tell everybody out there I said hi. Have a great Friday, and we're gonna go get some lunch, and then celebrate Mother's Day. Tell all your moms Happy Mother's Day. Don't forget to get them a card and some flowers at least. Take them to a nice dinner, and rock on.
Awesome. Thank you, Guthrie. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, guys.